We have two great guests in studio talking about an upcoming opportunity for folks to learn a little bit more about the Tiny House Veterans Village. It's going to be at the Civic Center this upcoming Thursday night from 5:30 to 7. April and JC are in studio with me and Spencer this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here and talking to us about this. You had another one of these open houses last month for folks to learn a little bit more about this. You can also go quixotecommunities.org, and then under our communities you see the drop down there and you can get right to Shelton Veterans Village with a whole host of pieces of information, including past pieces in print and the press and a frequently asked questions section. So for those who are unfamiliar perhaps of this push to get a Veterans Village into Shelton, JC, let's start with you and give us a little bit of a background on how this all kind of came to be, and then April, you can jump in and tell us where we're at now.
Sure, yeah, and thanks so much for having us. So I'm the executive director at Quixote Communities, and we have a village currently in Olympia, just about 20 minutes from here, and it's been a really successful model. We've got 30 residents there, and we just really wanted to house more folks, making this a successful model, and Senator Tim Sheldon actually has been a huge supporter and wanted this in his community, and so we pretty much got together and were able to receive funding from Washington State, and working with the city council, working with different veterans groups here, including April. That's how we kind of got together and connected, and just trying to make this work. So that's how it kind of started. It's been a process. It's been a little bit over a year, but we finally just worked with the city council, and we have land on North 13th Street, and so we're getting ready to go through our permitting process.
And April, how is this going to be beneficial to the veterans here in our community? I know you work closely with them. I saw you just at Memorial Hall last week, as a matter of fact. And first, the numbers of veterans you know to be in our community, and then the number of veterans who are going to be able to be benefited by this.
Well, actually, there are many veterans that probably don't even come into our stand down, when we have that once a year in November for our homeless and poverty-stricken veterans. We don't even see everybody that is in need of a home. So sometimes they're out in the woods and they don't come in to be counted or to get the help. So there's probably more than what we see, but we average just over 20-some. But we, have some really great people that have connections out there that are slowly but surely getting them comfortable and, having that really great communication, and we're getting them informed.
JC, is the Quixote Village in Thurston County a similar model? Does it benefit veterans, or is it a different model?
Yeah, so it's the same model, but it is not specific to veterans. But we did see that as a need in Mason County. We do have veterans that live there, but it's not a requirement. Here in Shelton, it will be a requirement.
What are some of the things that you hear out and about that are it's not accurate information? What are some of the things people are saying or perhaps writing about online that is untrue and needs to kind of be dispelled? Explain kind of the process between how folks are going to get homes and things like that.
Sure, yeah. We hear it all. And a lot of it is really fear-based, and I totally understand that. So we hear a lot of the time that there's going to be more crime, more drug use, property values are going to go down, things like that. And it's just, it's not true. We have homeless veterans or homeless folks living in the streets near the river already right now. And we just feel that if you have someone that we're going to have case managers there one-on-one, this is going to be recovery housing, so they are going to be drug tested or help with recovery with whatever that looks like to them. It's a safe environment. And I've worked at Quixote Village for the past 4 years. It's not a violent place. There isn't drug use. It's a safe environment. These people want to have a safe and secure place. I think that's a huge myth too, is people are worried about security, but our residents at Quixote are really worried about security because they've been living, on a 24-hour clock, kind of worrying about where am I going to sleep, where can I store my stuff. So they want to make it a safe environment as well too. So I think those are 2 or 3, how many I just mentioned, myths. And that's a huge part of why we're holding these once a month. So they're every second second Thursday at the Civic Center from 5:30 to 7. Really want people who are concerned or don't really know about it, or in the community just have questions so they can ask that. And we want to be as open and transparent as possible of what it looks like.
Sure.
The older I get, the more I like this idea of tiny homes. My wife and I have explored this out in the woods, having just like a little maybe movable home or something. But what's the idea behind this? Is it the smaller footprint? Is it more manageable for these vets to kind of take care of a smaller area? Or tell us about that.
Yeah, so Coyote Village actually started as a tent city back in Olympia about 2007. And the residents actually, they wanted, something permanent because they were moving from pretty much camp to camp. They were hosted on different church sites, and they wanted something permanent because it's not really sustainable, and they wanted an actual home. And so they came up with a tiny house model, actually, because in the tent city they created this community that they had. They were a family, and they wanted to remain to have that, but they also wanted their own place. And so I think the tiny home is really, it's not an apartment complex where you have people on every angle, above, below, you're sharing a wall with people. They wanted that ownership of having their own space, but they also wanted that community. And so it's a village, so there's 30 homes, but there's also a community building, and that's where people, their kitchen is. We have a multi-purpose room for different like enrichment activities, and then we also have supportive staff there as well. And so that community piece is just so strong. We've seen that peer support, and I'm sure April can attest to. With veterans, we feel like this model is going to work so well because they have the same lived experiences, same trauma and whatnot, and same kind of routine as well too. And so we think it's just going to be this really rich support.
Yeah, you mentioned veterans being a requirement. April, what's the other processes in I guess the background checks before you let the folks
she's actually
in?
the pro, but I can tell you. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, there's no felonies, right? Or they do a background drug test.
Yeah.
Background and drug test. So they can't, use drugs. So that when they come in, they have to be drug free. No tests with anything positive on it of illegal. See, this is why you should be.
Yeah, no, that's fine. April's my huge community support person, so I kind of do the rules and all the non-fun stuff. But yeah, so it'll be the same eligibility requirement pretty much as the housing authority. Okay. So like for Section 8s. And so yes, we accept the drug testing. That's not really a requirement for them, but we do drug tests. So they can't have a positive drug test. They have to have, everything has to be clear for them to move in. And then we also do not allow sex offenders as well as people with active warrants.
It looks like as well with the Shelton one, you're working on one in Orting as well. And how's that process? How's the community there understanding this?
Yeah, Orting is pretty small. So it's rural. It's kind of like Shelton, but much smaller. But we chose Orting because there's the soldiers' home is there. And so that's actually where we're going to be, is on that campus. And the city council has been really awesome. Same kind of fears with some of the community. And so we hold monthly meetings there as well. That project's a little further along. We started a little bit earlier. We've been working on there about 2 years, and we just had our conditional use permit hearing, and we're hoping to break ground in the next few months, fingers crossed. But it's for veterans as well.
Is there going to be a cost associated this from the veterans, or is this all from state funds or things like that?
Do you know that?
30% of the veterans' income is what will be paid for rent there. That includes utilities, the Wi-Fi, everything.
Okay.
So that's really, I think, an excellent price and very affordable, and yet it still gives them a sense of ownership and responsibility.
Sure, yeah. And you mentioned community building and some of the things that are there. Go over some of those for me and the types of, I don't know, like case managers or things?
Sure, yeah. So it's based off the model in Olympia. We actually keep calling Shelton, or I do, the Coyote 2.0, because we've learned a lot.
Sure.
We've almost been there for about 6 years, so we've learned a lot with the design and our model. So we're always kind of perfecting it, and so we're excited to have Shelton here. But basically, we'll have a full-time program manager, and that person's going to pretty much be like the landlord, be overseeing everything, making sure everything's working, taking rent from residents, and then we'll have a full-time full-time case manager, and that person will work one-on-one with each resident with whatever goals that they need or are wanting to kind of acquire, as well as helping them with benefits or food stamps, finding a mental health provider if they need it, finding a doctor, going back to school, employment, kind of the whole full spectrum. Whatever they're needing, they're the resource navigator pretty much, and so they'll be helping them. We're also wanting to reach out with the community and see if people want to volunteer their skills or expertise. Like, for instance, in Olympia, we have a yoga teacher that comes once a week. That's really helpful. We've also had people teach like life skill classes. We have a garden. We'll have a garden in Shelton as well, so people help with that. So really whatever residents are wanting and whatever the community is wanting to bring, we are all for it.
Is this considered like transitional housing for them? How permanent housing is this? Is it like a lease, or is there an understanding they're there for a certain amount of time, or is needed, or how does it work?
Sure. So the model that we technically use is called permanent supportive housing, and that's kind of a housing model. And basically, they're built to last. First of all, these are built, with the same kind of skills and whatnot that with a regular house, just scaled down. So they're permanent. So the actual structure is permanent, made to last. It's not emergency housing or whatnot. And it's permanent. So they can stay as long as they want to. They sign a year lease and they are free to re-up that if they're wanting to. But some people do use it as transitional and more of a stepping stone. Some people just need to get their feet back up, and we do see that. So the average time in Olympia is about 2.5 years that people have, but we definitely have some folks who have some sort of disability or obstacle or barrier preventing them from living independently on their own. If they were to move into their own apartment, they wouldn't last for whatever reason, and so we are totally fine with providing that supportive atmosphere with case managers and with the peer support to make sure that they stay housed. And that's one of our goals, is to make sure people are, housing stability.
Mm-hmm.
So
you might be surprised how important that is, because even when I got out, I had family I could stay with, but I was couch surfing for sure. Mm-hmm. So when you first get out of the military, you don't necessarily have anywhere to go right away.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The next opportunity to learn more about this, the open house, is at the Civic Center this Thursday, the 11th, from 5:30 to 7. You can also go to quixotecommunities.org, and right there under Our Communities find not only the Olympia one with a lot of information about what's been happening there over the last couple of years, as well as the Shelton Veterans Village and what's happening too in Orting. JC, April, good to see you. Thank you so much for coming in and talking about this.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.